The knight. The next piece in our lesson series, the knight. A very sporadic piece. The knight is the only piece in the game of chess that jumps and does not capture what it jumps over. It captures only what it lands on. Just like if I were to jump up in the air and land on a person, if the person I land on, that's going to hurt. The person I jump over won't feel a thing. Same thing with the knight. The knight jumps 1, 2, 1 to the side, or 1, 2, 1 to the side. A total of 3 squares in distance. He goes 2 and then turns to either side. Now that also works in the opposite direction. 1, 2, 1 to the side. Yup. Still 1, 2. Look, there's another side. So 1, 2, 1 to the side. 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 You might be saying, Coach Atkins, what about to the left and right? Well, I'm glad you asked, because that's true as well. 1, 2, 1 to the side. 1, 2, 1 to the side. Now I know that looks like up and down, but if relative to the direction of the knight, let's say, yeah, you get the point. Yeah, sure. All right, so now 1, 2, 1 to the side, and 1, 2, 1 to the side. So from where the knight is standing, the knight can capture any one of those pieces in one move. That's how he moves. 1, 2, 1 to the side. Always in an L-like formation. Always a total of 3 squares, and only captures the piece that he lands on and not what he jumps over. For example, can't touch him, can't touch him, can't touch him, can't touch him. Can't touch any of the pieces that are presently on the board right now. This knight cannot capture any one of those pawns. Those pawns are perfectly safe because the only squares that are being attacked are C7, B6, sorry, B4, C3, E3, F4, and F6. Now, a fun game with the knight is the Knight's Challenge. How do we do the Knight's Challenge? I'm glad you asked that question as well. We are going to fill 1 quadrant of the board with pawns. Now if you're at home doing this, you can use pennies, you can use buttons, you can use whatever you'd like to use, because what's in the square is not important. We just want to be able to mark the squares to know what squares we have and have not visited. Now, 1 quadrant of the board, that is 1/4 of the board. 1, 2, 3, 4 quadrants make up a sum total whole, 68 squares. Speaking of numbers, the knight is worth 3 points. 1, 2, 3. 3 points. Now again, we're not taking into consideration what these pieces are, because some might be looking at this saying, hey, Coach Atkins, that pawn can hit that knight. We're not worried about how these pieces move. Again, they are just to mark the squares we have and have not visited. Now the object of this game is to visit each one of these squares only 1 time and capture a piece every time we move that knight. Now, mathematically, it is impossible to capture every one of these pawns, but we can leave only 1. And if done correctly, if we think ahead, and that's the importance of the Knight's Challenge, thinking ahead, knowing what move you'll make after the move you're making, and so on and so on. So we have to know well enough in advance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right here, 1, 2, 1 to the side, because we know that's how the knight moves, in the shape of an L. Liked it so much, I'm going to do it again. 1, 2, 1 to the side. 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 Now notice, I might be moving with a little bit of confidence. 1, 2, 1 to the side. And I look to be not really deliberating or thinking about my moves. But I have options. 1, 2, 1 to the side. 1, 2, 1 to the side. 1, 2, 1 to the side. I have options. Some of which are correct, some of which are wrong. Now, if I don't choose the proper pawns, I will be left with more than one pawn. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to chart my course and figure out what is the best path to take in order to only leave one pawn on the board. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pawns left. So what I'm going to do is, in my head, I'm going to imagine that I'm capturing these pawns one at a time until I have reached 6 pawns, because I know I can't capture one last remaining pawn, but I can get 6 of these guys. So let's say, for example, I went here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That means I'm absolutely going to capture all 6 of those 7 pawns. What would happen if I went, we went that way. Let's try 1, 2, 3. If I go that way, 1, capture this piece. Let's put it this way, kind of funny, so we know we've been there. 2, and 3. Then where am I going to go? I'm going to leave 1, 2, 3 pawns on the board. So we know that that will not work. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to try a different path. 1, 2, 1, I can capture here. I can capture here. We already looked at what happens if I capture here. Game over. So I'm going to go this way. 1, 2, 1 to the side. 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 And as I said, leaving only one pawn.